Well, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where we have the pleasure in speaking with you today. We're excited here. We have the second of our four series demo webcast here, and we are also a part of the Microsoft webcast series again this year. So very excited to be here with you today. I know a few of you have already submitted some questions. Go ahead and submit those through the Q&A tab, and we'll make sure that we're monitoring those. So we have a nice webcast for you today. Again, it's all about resource and capacity planning. Now that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So we're going to be going through that step by step and really going through the demonstration of this. Now, when I'm going through, I am going to be an admin or potentially some other roles. So you might see or be able to do a little more than maybe just your resource manager role. And we'll talk about that as we get into the demonstration. Well, I like to know who I'm chatting with, and I can see a few folks have joined and said a quick hello. But from this point, my name is Jacques Goupil. We're with PPM Works. We're a gold certified partner of Microsoft dedicated to Microsoft PPM, everything to do with Microsoft Project Online, training, consulting, as well as planning and getting your team up and running. Now, along with the very passion that we carry with project management, resource management, and the like, we also get out of the office quite often, and I enjoy not only training for marathons and taking some runs around, but also heavy into volunteering, and so is the organization at PPM Works. I'm grateful to be a part of that and blend everything in. Now, we do have, we said, 2 more parts in our demo series here, and then we'll be going into our December demo series, but we're looking at portfolio management made easy on the 21st, right before Thanksgiving, so a lot to give thanks for there. And then create your own portfolio dashboard. We'll literally be able to dive into Power BI, and you folks can actually get in there and create some of your own. So when you leave that session, not only will you know what Power BI is all about, but you'll also be able to create some of your own dashboards that's connected to your own data. In addition to this, we do have our running series, and we have some in December and January. And if you get the recording here, you can actually click on these links, or if you get the PowerPoint slides, go ahead and request those. You can go and get registered for all these. We're going to be looking at this custom dashboards in Project Professional 2016 in December. Also keeping that stream alive with Project Pro. We're going to be creating new tables and views and get to see what's new both in 2016 and what you can do in the legacy 2013 tool set. And then we're going to get into templates. So everything you need to know about SharePoint site and template development, when it is to use those, and the best practices in and around all of those. So today, what are we going to be doing? Well, our learning objectives are these, and these are they. We're going to take a look at how you can see resources, who's working on what, when, the old proverbial question that we tend to ask our organization. We're going to look at capacity as well as availability of all resources. We're going to look at the top-down method, but also the bottom-up method of resource management, and show you, if you haven't seen it already, the new resource engagement features. So we'll take either from a request, a project request, or a resource engagement. We'll move that through to looking at the analysis of our resources, and then we'll get into the actual management of those resources once we make those resource assignments. We're also going to get into heat maps and understanding what the heat maps mean and how they look both out of the box and ones that are in the dashboard that we're doing. So big picture kind of person, here we go, creating the project requests. So that's that top down that we talked about. For those folks that had used 2013 or earlier, resource plans were a part of the solution. Now they are not, and we'll take a look at what is called resource engagements. Portfolio analysis and getting into that piece of the tool. It's a big piece and a new piece of the tool for some of you that haven't been using Project Server or Project Online. resource engagements into the schedule. We'll talk about how you see that indicator of marrying what was proposed to what has actually been committed. And then finally getting into some views and really using some Power BI dashboards for you folks to get into seeing not only across the all projects, but what are the resources and what are we getting into. Okay, so to get started, a big piece of this with Project Online is this thing called resource engagements. And again, we thought we'd start you through just a few slides and then jump right into the tool set. And why do we want to get started with a few slides? I find it easy to understand or comprehend what resource engagements does with the tool set, meaning Project Online, when you really can see this schematic. And now this is really up to you and the organization if you want to do the complete life cycle of what Microsoft has provided for you, which is that top-down planning or the request mechanism called resource engagements. Now you can start, and we're actually going to start with the project manager today in Microsoft Project Professional, creating a request and saying, hey, team, organization, maybe resource manager, I would like these specific roles, okay, overall. So I'd like to create a quick project, throw in a bunch of resources. I'm not really sure where I'm going to decompose and what even tasks they're going to do, but I just want to get this process started. Now, a lot of folks say, hey, this goes hand in hand with our new project request. Absolutely. If you have a project charter or request doc, however that's happening, and you have to put in percent of resources at a high level, that's typical request. Also, cost or budgeted cost. We're going to see where we capture all these. We're going to spend today focusing on the resource piece of this. Then it's sent over to the resource manager. The resource manager reviews, accepts, or actually can change any of those requests that you have, and then can send it back and say, yes, I'm committing it and I agree with this. And it's actually sent back to the schedule, but again, not tied to the task. So the project manager now knows, hey, I have 25% of this project manager. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make those assignments when the time is ready. Okay, so that's the big submission process. You could either start it with the project manager, or you can skip this and start just with the resource manager through the web. And we'll talk about that when we get into the demonstration of this. Now, you also can set email reminders through here, and within the tool set, you select that and you do that pending resource request every day, every month, etc. And you can put that in. So just a little admin highlight. We typically get questions in and around reminders on anything, and we just wanted to call that out before we got the question. And then we'll get into taking a look at the analyze and getting into the heat map. So I'm going to switch us over into our demo environment. Now we're taking a look at push of information since the last time we logged on. For those that aren't familiar with Project Online, you get this new Metro tile faced, and we can see that we have some pending approvals, we have some tasks, we might have some project, etc. And where we're going to jump into right now is going over into our resource center. Now you can see I have everything rolled up by a role, and I sort of recommend that. You could have it rolled up by group or department or anything else that you have by just simply creating a view within the resource area here. Now, we can see, and I'm just going to note for us that we have a bunch of our project managers selected here. And if we wanted to go in and start to take a look at their information, we would go into the out-of-the-box reports for resource utilization. And this is the capacity view. Now, why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because right now we're taking a look across our organization, and there are some new features here with Project Online that I wanted to highlight. As you hover over any of these capacity, now what you're going to see is it actually is called out by individual. And you can also scroll down to see what we had before of all of our requests here and assignments, okay, that we're seeing going across the organization. So when we get to this point here, we're seeing all that information on a resource, both top down and bottoms up, that we're going to see into this view. So how do we get the information in that we talked about from a top top-down perspective as well as a bottoms-up? Well, bottoms-up is pretty easy, and we're just going to open up the Project Center here. And when you go into Project Center, you can actually create a new project. So you're going to go up to the top left-hand corner, you're going to do File, New, and that's going to create your project. You could go in and fill out the information. You could pull from a template. You can get all your resource information in right there from that template and pull that information in. So again, what I was talking through is this up top, this new information. You grab that File New, you go in, you grab your template, and off you're running. More of a bottoms-up approach, but again, anything you can do from the web to start creating those projects and helping your organization out. Now, the other area would be going in to do the top-down. And if I scroll here into what we're looking at now is Microsoft Project Professional. So I'm going to stop here. Remember that view that we took a high-level look and said you can either do a request from Microsoft Project Professional as a project manager and send it off to the resource manager. So that's what we're going to take a look at. Now, I happen to set this up for us already. You could have gone in and created a new project, okay? And this can be done even with the new tool set, okay? As you can see, we have some Scrum and some Kanban and all this nice Agile-like functionality. And if you want more information about the Agile, make sure you tune into one of our other webcasts, one that we did last week. You can grab that recording. But today we're going to be focused here on resources. So what I'm taking a look at is a project. Remember, we said this could be as detailed or as high level as possible. So let me go back to the Gantt chart. Now the Gantt chart could have a bunch of tasks, or it could literally have nothing, okay? And remember, for this scenario, I said, let us presume that we're going to do some top-down planning, and we don't know all the tasks, nor do we need to know at the time. But we know, okay, a general sense. Now, if you know a general sense, you could actually go off, create a new project, and grab a new project task, okay? Like you can see from here, and maybe it's a construction project or a new project. And what that's going to do, it's going to take all the information from the Gantt chart, and it's going to start populating all this information. Now, what about resources? You say, well, you could actually have your resources in here, or you might not have them populated. In either scenario here, what you're going to want to do is you can go over to the resource area. Okay, you can see my view here. And in resource plan, that's where we're going to start. So we're going to go off to our resource plan, and we're going to start to create our resource invites. Now, before you do that resource plan, what you need to do is you got to create your team just like you did before. So we're going to do our build team from enterprise. We're going to go out and select some people, and in this case, we're going to do project manager. And I'm just going to take a few folks that we selected earlier on. I think Eileen was there, so I'm going to go ahead and select her as well. All right, so we have these folks. We're putting them onto our plan now. Now you could go down to the detail level and start assigning through the Assign Resource button. And we've all done this before. So rather than do the bottoms-up approach, we're going to do the tops-down approach. And if I go into my view and I look into my resource plan view here, now we get a list of all of our resources. Now this is where resource engagements take place. And if I go over to resource engagements ribbon here, again, this is the dynamic ribbon from this view that we're looking at, I can go in here and start to insert all of my engagements. Now I'm pausing here because some of the astute folks are going to say, well, my assignments here are grayed out, okay, and they are going to be grayed out until you go ahead and publish this. So I did pause here, okay, I saved, I waited, I wanted to walk through this with you. So now if I go off and I want to go off and save and publish, and let's just do this. This is New Store 1310 is what this one's going to be. And I'm just going to correct that spelling because that's how I am. And I'm going to go off and save this. So it's going off and saving this project, and you've seen this before, and here it goes off and saves it. And so now it's pulling in all my information for all of my projects that I have open. So just like it did with our resource usage, just like it did with all of our resources, once you publish a project, and if you've opened this with view all resource information across the project, when you first go and open this, it's going to show you this view. And now I can see that I have Eileen and Cindy and all these other good folks, okay, up here with what we're inviting, meaning what we're asking or starting that engagement, okay? So why did I save it and why did we go off? It's because you have to go ahead and do that before you can make an engagement. All right, so now we have this new store. Let's go off and create one. And actually, I'm going to go off and create this because I don't know who I want to do it, but I do know that I need a project manager. So I'm going to hit add engagement. And here I'm going to put, this just needs to be, in this case, a little description. Is it a senior project manager? Do they have background in particular construction? What does it need to be? In this case, they just need to be, you know, a junior project manager. It's pretty straightforward. So that's what I'm going to request. I'm going to put a start date here, and I can go in and create my start date. And I'm just going to put in, let me just go ahead and put in today's date here. So there's my November. I might not know the finish date, or I can just leave this wherever it happens to be. All right. And then I can either do units, meaning percent complete. I can go ahead and put in my 25%. And then here, what I'd like is a junior PM with previous store deployment experience. So I'm going to be able to see this, okay? Previous store deployment is what I meant to say. Okay, experience. All right, so I can go off here, and now if I hit this OK button, it's going to come back to me and say, hey, you can't do that, or we have an issue with that, or something like that, okay? So now I have a request for a junior type of this project manager. I have a request for the senior type. Now you might say, hey, here at our organization, we actually have roles that are junior and are senior. Absolutely. If you do, that's great, and go off and use it. But in this case, we're throwing everything in the project manager role. And now what I can do is, even though I said, you know, here's 25%, I can now go ahead and drag this across and say, well, I'd really like 25% from November to January. And I'm submitting this as a draft status. I can't change this, okay? On the left-hand side, it tells me that, okay, this has been edited, and well, that's all right. And we haven't submitted this yet to go ahead and do this. So what we'd want to do now is we'd want to go ahead and save this. We're actually I'm gonna publish this project because it's a new project here. And then we can go off and submit this, and here we can create a site, yes or no, just like you've done before. Now, while that's going on, what I'm going to do is switch over to the other scenario that I already had up, which was this resource engagements demo. And I'm going to go back, if you recall, to our view and into our resource plan. All right, so I'm bringing this up. So now I have all my engagements for this, and if I go over here, now I can see that I can actually go ahead and submit all my engagements, or I can just select individual engagements and go off and send those. What I also like to do, and I don't like to pass over this too quickly, is there's this inspect, just like the task inspector button. If I go ahead and hit this on the left-hand side, what I really like about this is it's the ability here to show you that if there are any conflicts, okay? And you can see it's a little information here. Oops, I just hit the wrong button. I'm just going to go back and use my Control-Z. This is a really good tool, and it'll tell you right here if there are any conflicts that you have. So now let's go off and publish these off. I'm going to go into my engagement here. I'm going to go ahead and submit mine, and I'll just go ahead and submit all of them. Off they go. You can see down here that submit has completed successfully. So now what we've done is we've gone off, we've requested these type of resources, okay, for my project. And to make this a little easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close my new store. So now my new store is closed. I'm I'm going to drop down and just see my request for my resource engagement demo here. And now we're going to go back over as a resource manager. And where do we see this? Well, again, if you hadn't guessed, you go off to your resource area here. And I'm going to just go ahead and refresh this real quick. Here we go. Refresh this resource. So where was I? I went over into my resource center. From my resource center, I was able to go in and select my resources. So let's go back and I'll just show you how I did that. So in my resource area, I went and selected my resources on the right hand side here. And then what I did is I went under the resource area and I selected right here called resource engagements. And that's where you're going to see the view of all the resource engagements that you have in this case. So we're taking a look at Eileen, Jacques, Laura, Scott, and Selena here. And that's just popping up here. Okay, and when that comes back to us, what we'll be able to do is see the view of our resource engagements. And you'll be able actually to see what has been proposed and what has been committed. And this is the area of a resource manager where they can actually look into these resources. So it looks like I'm right now just looking at one resource here, but I'm going to stick with this for the demo purposes, especially since we're recording here. And you can see that I have some that are proposed, I have some that are committed. If I scroll over here and see this scroll bar, I can actually start to see what has been proposed as well as what's been committed. If you want, you can go ahead and hide that and just see the committed here. I like to see both, at least for now. And what you can go ahead and do is I can go in here, and regardless of what has been proposed, I can go in and submit this and make these commitments. So I can go in here and change these so you can see what's been proposed. And I happen to be looking for here June through September in this case, and it doesn't look like I have any proposal for the time period because I missed this, okay? And it was way back from 4/1 to 6/6. In this case, rather than going back and making those proposals, okay, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come in here and make a commitment. Now, there's two ways to do this. You can commit it through hours, okay, or you can go off and commit it through days. In this case, I'm just going to use my hours, and I'm going to allow 40 hours in June and 40 hours in July, and then 20 hours that you can see here. Now, as I go through and make these commitments here, what I can go ahead and do is I can then send this back to the project manager. So there's this back and forth piece of this. And this is that high-level view, again, top-down planning from a resource perspective, or resource manager, I should say, perspective, that you can go in here and take a look here. So we're now handing off. We're taking a resource request at the high level. We're then looking at it as a resource manager. And I went in here and put this information in. Well, you're going to want to take a look at the capacity for these. And we said that they were in these months of June, July, and August. So do we even have the availability? So as a resource manager, I can come in here and take a look. And it looks like who does have, and I do have availability. Let's say, in this case, Jacques doesn't, okay? So I would need to go in and either push this out to where we do have availability, or, why don't we assign somebody else, okay? So you can go in here and take a look and assign Laura in the month of July, August, and September. So this is the data that we're using, okay? And you can see right from up here, I can take this information, once I have this, I can go off to my resource request with this button, and that's going to bring us back into our resource request area where we can say, yes, I agree with this, or no, what I want is I don't want to have this to be Jacques. I want to switch this off to be Laura in this case. So again, as a resource manager, you have that capability. So let's go ahead and say I went forward and I committed this, okay? as a project manager, where do I see that? As a project manager, you would see that in your project. You do not need to leave your project, okay? You would come back here, and I can now see that I have some committed right here. I also have something proposed because I haven't, if you notice there, I didn't go ahead and hit submit there for this project manager request. But here are our committals in this area. And now when we go and we start decomposing and making these assignments, I know that I have X amount of resource for this time period. And as I go ahead and submit this, Microsoft Project is smart enough to say, hey, project manager, you have more resources allocated to this project than your resource manager has committed to you. That's pretty cool. And you'll actually see that up here with a little indicator that says, hey, this resource is not, in this case, they're over allocated. That's great too. But they're actually, you're using more than what you were committed to. And it's a little flag. Okay, you can actually go in and see that report, or you can just see that information from this view itself. Okay, so we went in, we took a look at top-down planning from a high level, and now what we want to do is we want to take a look at that capacity planning area that we just talked about here, and we want to take it another step forward. When you go forward here, and you've made all those request, you actually have something called a heat map that comes out, okay? And within this heat map, this is where you can take a look and see, okay, what are the colors and what do I want to change them? You can see here that we have blue, red, and green, and blue is what is significantly, in this case, under, so it's lower, so we don't want to be low. Does that make sense? Well, sure. We want to make sure that everyone's doing stuff, okay, so they stay happily engaged, as well as don't leave the organization because they're bored, okay? But we also want to make sure that we have all people's work into the system. Green, you're in a happy spot, okay, we're roughly there. And then red is things that are over allocated. So I can see right here that Ally Mac is over allocated, okay, in this red area. Looks like Cody's doing okay until we get to July, in this case. And you can start to see this, so we can start to understand our resource capacity and what it looks like. But we're not going to stop there. Okay, this is a view within the tool set, which is really nice and provides you some of that. But what about some of the other views and taking a look there? So that's where we're going to get into. We're going to get over into the first area, which is the dashboard. Now within Project Online, you can go ahead and pull this dashboard in, and we can start to see that same analysis, okay, across all of our resources, right? And we can actually start to see that we have some availability for some of these folks, and we're over allocated for others. And we can see that we have top resources with issues here. We have a bunch that are going through at this level. And then we can also see the availability chart here, and again, it's in that red, yellow, green aspect that a lot of people like. So they're over allocated. Okay, now they have some availability, and then we don't. And you can start to see that. Again, this is an out-of-the-box report that you can start to use. The next area, which we're finding a lot of folks starting to use, is one of our newer Project Online dashboards. This was presented by Microsoft, and here what we've done is we've gone in, we've made a couple minor tweaks to this, but you can do the same as well. As you pull it down, and now we have a view of not only everything that's within our project, but since we're doing a resource view here, we want to take a look at the resource demand or the resource assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and start and just click into one of these here. Now what this is going to do, it's going to drill in from our dashboard down into our actual resource report here. And the resource assignments, resource demand, as well as the resource request information is all going to be shown in our Power BI report. I'm going to let this go here, and I'm going to move over to another one of our reports while that seems to load. Seems like our development environment's a little slow today, but no worries, we'll continue on here. So in this view, you can actually start to take a look not only at our cost information, but again at that resource role utilization. And we can start to pick this out and say, hey, I only want to see my project manager view, okay? And then it will pull us in and take a look at, okay, roles by, etc. And you can actually do some drill into this data. Again, this is just one sample of our utilization by role. You can see all the projects here. We can go and get that sample project that we were taking a look at and click on in here. Yeah, it's a bummer. Well, I'm going to continue on here, and then by the end I can circle back to see if that's still coming up. Another area that we found helpful are some other visuals, and this is just sort of a conglomerate of all things Power BI resource related. So you'd really have to understand, okay, what do we really want to see? And here's just proposed work and committed by resource name. So just showing you what we're taking a look at, visually here on proposed and committed work. We also have that on the left-hand side showing you the overall hours. Now you can very quickly and easy tag these. If you like one of these reports, say I like this, I can go in here and tag this and say, yep, I'm going to go in and create my own dashboard using this. And you can add it on to an existing dashboard or just simply create your own. So all of this information, again, is just dissecting and grabbing that information and showing that we can do this across not only the tasks that are out there, but all things resource engagement as well. Okay, one last try here. Here we go. So here's our resource assignments that you can see. We can see that all of our tasks are here by, in this case, our analyst. You can go down and select individually, or I can literally just scroll down, okay, all of this information. We wanted to take a look at the project manager before. So here's everything that we have in for project manager. We can see what type of projects they're working on, where is the swell of information by type, okay? And then we can also go in and see across all of our resources. And what they've done for you is they've actually gone in here and put in some nice drop downs, okay, which people tend to like. We get some really positive feedback on here. Now this other one, and I'm gonna probably let this pull up, is our resource demand forecast. Oh gosh, I really like this report, and it takes just a quick second to understand what you're looking at, but once you do, it's pretty darn cool. So what do we have here? So on the left-hand side, we have our resource demand, meaning our work hours, what's being requested here. And on our right-hand side down here is the timeline that we're running for. And what it's going to show here is the resource demand forecast. It shows you a predictive, okay, of what we're going to potentially need, okay, and for the demand for all the way into August 2018. As I move back through this, you can see right here what we're looking at of the request and the predictive, okay, of what we may need come down the line. So I really like what this looks like, and I like the ability to start to see some of this. Now, you can always question the validity of this and what it's showing you and why, but I do like, oh my gosh, we got a big spike here in December. We're going to need a lot of resources potentially. Let's go out and drill into that and really make sure. So you can go back to your resource detail information, okay, for that month, okay, and then see some information right here. And this is Ben, but we were talking about our project manager in this case, so I'm going to go and switch to the project manager. And we can now see that swell, if you will, of work, availability, demand, capacity, all this good stuff, how much they're assigned, in this case, unfortunately, how over allocated they are, which just means we haven't done a job of taking the selection or the resource demand that's coming in for a project manager and change this out in our demo environment to name resources. That's what this is telling me. okay? And if I was to pick a named resource for one of those individuals here, you can actually see a little clearer view, okay? And that's showing some of our reality. And unfortunately, this is reality. You know, over the next couple months, I am over allocated, or I'm predicted to be over allocated. So leveraging Power BI and leveraging the tool set to have this predictive analysis is really a win when we start talking about resource management. So I know we looked at a lot here. We looked at resource management through the lens of a project manager creating a request. We looked at resource managers, okay, and figuring out what they wanted to see. And then we actually got into some of the reports as well. And a lot of folks say, hey, I want a copy of what you just showed, or that what we call a resource management toolkit. Absolutely, you can go ahead and request that at info@ppmworks. We'll go ahead and make sure we get that off to you, as well as if you'd like a recording of this this webcast as well, we'll be able to send that over to you. One other additional thing I want to, before we start to get in some of the questions, and I do see a few coming in, so thank you very much for sending those, is we also have a tips and tricks program, or an immersion offering. And what that is really we come to you on site, and with a 2 to 3 hour series, and work with you with the tool sets, with it, whether it's resource management, has to be something else. We really dive into it and help you out with that. And right now, there are some funds that are provided by Microsoft through the next month or so. If you're interested in that, reach out to CIE at PPM Works or info at PPM Works, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Now, we're about to get into the Q&A session. I would like to thank everybody for being on here. The call to action for everybody on the recording is go ahead and reach out to us. Let us know what you think. You can personally get linked into me, Jacques Goupil, there, or into PPM Works, and then go ahead and ask and get registered for one of those tips and tricks, and make sure that you go ahead and you submit your PDUs, or submit for your PDUs. So if you want the PDU code, again, info@ppmworks.com is the way to get that. All right, now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to switch off the recording. But again, I thank everybody for attending. I'm going to stay on and answer some of those questions. And if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out to us again, please go ahead and do so at info@ppmworks.com.